Hi, everyone. Kelly here again. And today I have Alexandra Saraceno from Park Slope Piano Studio in New York. And Alexandra and I are going to be talking about how she took the big leap to start her own independent studio, relocate that studio, and was able to grow her revenue over the last year by over 8 times, which is so stinking cool. We have a lot of ground to cover. So we're going to jump right in. But Alexandra, I'd love to just have you introduce yourself and your studio and just tell anyone who's listening a little bit about who you are and what you teach.
Sure. I'm in Brooklyn, in New York City here, and came here for school and then started teaching privately after that. Started working with some schools and then slowly started taking on some private students, but never fully produced a private studio in terms of
Mm.
the branding or naming of it, or just didn't take it super seriously, a bit more of a casual endeavor. And now I have 12 students, and the studio is in full operation.
It's been an exciting journey. We were talking right before we hit record about your desire to go independent and how that was kind of a question mark in the beginning when we first started talking and trying to figure out what might that look like and what would life be if we were leaving some of those institutions or kind of pulling back on some of those other organizations and teaching more on your own. As you mentioned before, some of these are like very influential studios and organizations in New York City, which is a great feeling to be a part of. But we still have this desire to possibly venture out and be more entrepreneurial. What what was informing that, or maybe what were like the seeds of those thoughts?
I think the big sort of change is while these institutions provide a lot of security, whether it's a title or the name,
Mm.
or even just the facilities and resources and taking care of the scheduling and all of that is really convenient, but it doesn't equal quality. And not just,
Mm.
not saying that the teachers there are not very serious, because they are, but it's also the quality of students that they bring in, and it's hard to enforce the kind of learning that I wanted to take place. And
Mm.
so it was really the students that end up in some of these programs, or the wide variety of students. And then, of course, the pay that also felt like not didn't add up, I guess. And
Mm.
so uh, a conflict with what these institutions really represent, to what they mean to me and what they mean to potential students or families.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard because the security of that's an emotional thing. Like it's not just a um we're talking like numbers and data and like factual information. There's an emotional attachment to that security and like you said, kind of having that title and that recognition. Having someone hire you feels affirming, right? Like someone else recognizes that you did a lot of work, you have a really important skill set, and it's something that matches their program. And that affirmation, after a lot of school, right, after a lot of practicing and a lot of university work, it feels really good to have somebody else say, yes, you are a great teacher, you are a great musician. We'd like you to work with our program, especially when it's a program that has prestige, right? So leaving that is a challenge.
Right. When an individual doesn't have as much, maybe history or resources,
Mm.
or just like even just name recognition, or just that kind of reputation that an institution might, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it makes total sense. And like you said, you kind of just end up with every student that they hand you. You don't get a lot of say in who that is always, for better or for worse. So, of course, one of the snags is that we can have some really lovely students that come through, and also some of the students that maybe aren't a great fit. It's not that they're bad students, but they just might not be a fit for our teaching style, or maybe their passions and their interests and their goals are just not aligned with what we offer and our background and experience. And that can be uncomfortable. Honestly, I think that's something that you were experiencing a little bit too.
Totally. And even in my own consultations now, there is a moment where we say, like, this is also what I'm looking for. These are students who do well in my studio, have these characteristics. We might not be a great fit. We might be, though, and that will be great. But there are also just being able to choose, I think, is really important, or to say that before we even meet for a lesson, to be able to
Yeah.
connect with either the parents or the students if they're adults.
Well, when you vocalize that and you say like these are the characteristics that make someone a really great fit for my studio, my teaching style, the community that I'm building in the studio too. I've always felt like that's really empowering for me. Like not only do I get a say, but also I'm giving the student an opportunity and empowering them to opt in or out. And it's okay if they're not a fit, but we're setting clear expectations. Like one of those characteristics might be somebody that is going to practice consistently. And when you tell them that in the beginning, they kind of have a moment to say, "Oh, that's not going to be me. We're just kind of here for fun." Or maybe it's a student who's, really interested in competition or performance, and if that's not this student or vice versa, then it's important that they have the option to know that and decide for themselves. And I think that's part of what makes your consultations really successful. And it's definitely yielding better fitting students.
Yeah, that's such a treat as well. That it's not before just teaching students through schools. You're not sure what's really
Mm,
going on because you have no say in the students and if they're children, you don't really get to interface with the parents and set those expectations or just to get a feel of like what the dynamic is. And sometimes, especially sometimes in New York, that it's you're interacting maybe with a nanny dropping
sure.
a kid off, or it's part of an after school program. So it's like it's not as intentional because you didn't have like a call that you both made the time to like sit down and meet each other and like
Yeah.
really kind of to invest in studying piano. Um,
And starting from that mutual understanding means that the relationship is just so much more smooth going forward. Even like, okay, we're talking about characteristics and everything, but also just talking about policy up front. Like, hey, here are the expectations. This is how the business operates. No surprises, right? When you cancel short notice and I can't provide a makeup lesson, we are all on the same page, and there's no ill will or any kind of drama around that. We all were informed beforehand. Makes it easier, yeah.
totally.
Good. Well, I want to back up a little bit to when we were starting this process because, A, a lot has happened in your life since we started doing this and we were trying to grow the studio. And B, the emotions behind that, again, that we were kind of talking about this morning before we hit record, it's a little complicated. Like deciding to go out on your own. Like we were talking about that influence of the prestige of a music studio and that stability, but also it's just kind of scary to start your own business. Plus, you were moving and relocating, and there was a lot going on. So, paint a little picture of some of the challenges maybe that you were experiencing in trying to grow the studio independently in the beginning.
Yeah, I didn't have much of a plan to it. It was kind of
Mm,
just relying on like maybe something will come in through my website or word of mouth. But teaching at the schools kept me quite busy. And then once I was in the process of moving, there was also like, well, now where would I teach the new students? Because my piano is in one apartment and it needed to
mm,
get to the other apartment, and I was like just quite disorganized and had stuff in two places for a while and wasn't sure like should I be looking for students in one neighborhood or another or
mm.
just like not not spending a lot of time and I guess being intentional about just like taking a little bit of time to get a bit more organized and then just having it much more streamlined process in terms of what happens when I get an inquiry and then just going through a whole repeatable enrollment process that works really well.
It's such a
um,
familiar phrase. Whenever you got that,
I mean, but
oh,
it
I love
just,
it.
I think of that just often of how like, wow, it takes so much stress of even like questioning, I don't want to send this email because don't want to be annoying or I don't want to like,
Yeah.
just to, maybe they don't want the lessons or maybe like just questioning things. Instead, it's like, no, if they want to, they will. And if not, that's okay. You don't have to be so, precious or emotional about all of these interactions because right they're just they could use the reminder and there are also more students out there so it was
Yeah.
um
Yeah. Especially in New York. Although I will say too, New York is a very challenging market for a lot of other reasons. Like, yes, it's a high density, high population density area. There are a lot of students. I know you were mentioning before we moved to the new area, and there's literally a student that takes lessons who's across the street from you, which is super cool. Also, there are a lot of musicians in New York City. There's a lot of, quote unquote competition, these big legacy studios that have a really, really great reputation. So some of the marketing can be more challenging to stand out from some of those. I think one thing that we've done really well in your marketing, and something that you've worked really hard on to share in your marketing, is not only who you're looking for, but exactly what that experience is that you're providing. Like, what makes lessons with you a little bit more different or unique, or what is the atmosphere in lessons to help highlight that? Do you feel like with those shifts, when inquiries are coming in, most of the inquiries are fairly aligned with what you're offering?
Some definitely are. I think for them to send the initial inquiry,
Yeah.
they're seeing something that they like. They like the vibe, and they'll even include that or mention it on the call of just like, I got a good feeling about this, or I like that I saw your post in this group, and that really like aligns. Like I have a student who or a student whose parent was saying that they were already enrolled in lessons, but the teacher didn't prioritize maybe other. I mean, I don't know who this teacher was, or I don't know the
Not
validity of the
children, of
parents.
course.
Nothing
Yeah.
against the fellow teachers here, but she saw something I posted in a Facebook group and was like, "That sounds like a cool approach," and
Mm.
cool enough that she didn't message me or comment, but she took my email and sent me an email, which I thought was a lot of effort to in a sense, right? An email is
Yeah.
simple, but also it can be a journey to
Yeah.
take that step to send that inquiry. But as for students and the inquiries, if they're a lot more, they're usually more aligned. But also, if I get on a call with someone who's not into sort of holistic approach, they will both know, I think. And had a student um, that I could tell was just wanted to like an adult student that just kind of wanted to play and wasn't as interested in the history or theory or oral
Mm.
skills. And still is a good call and a good conversation, but not a fit for now.
Well, that confidence in saying no is a skill that we can practice and learn, but it is hard. I think I remember this probably would have been in the fall, maybe right around the time that you moved. I think we had a conversation about one that you had a consultation with. I think we'd offered maybe a trial lesson or like a trial month or something because you were still on the fence and we were trying to figure out how do we move on from them. Do you remember this?
And,
It's okay if you don't. At this point, I think you talked to so many people. It's probably
I
fine.
think I wonder. It makes me think of two scenarios around
Okay.
that time. That yeah, I think if it's one of those, it was one that I felt like I was really holding on to of just like I need to like make this work or figure out a way
Mhm.
to like I don't want to lose this lead. But then I
Yeah.
also felt like I what am I getting myself? I'm making things more complicated for myself, and we haven't even had a lesson yet. So,
Yeah.
um, one student, the parent didn't want to use the studio software, the management software that I use. They had some concerns about putting their information online, which I get, but it is, it's what I use. So if you don't want to use that software, we're not a good fit. It's
Yeah.
fine. But I started to try and negotiate, I think, and try like
Mm.
to like bring them on board. And it was just like I have to let this go. Um,
Well, and at a certain point when we're trying to, like, okay, a lot of musicians early in our conversation, something I hear a lot is, I just don't want to be salesy. Like, I don't want to put people in a high pressure sales situation. I'm not trying to like push them in a consultation to make a decision and pay me right then and there. And those are legitimate concerns because none of us want to be in a higher pressure sales situation. Like, we don't want to sit on the receiving end of that conversation. It's really uncomfortable and super awkward, and nobody feels like safe and secure in that conversation. So when you get into a situation where you feel like you're trying to convince someone or you're trying to sell them on lessons or like save the lead, it's not like sometimes it can feel a little, oh, I don't mean this to sound so negative, but the little desperation I think can kick in. And I think that is obvious in the energy that we're putting out, even if we're not aware of it. But more importantly, if you have to convince someone, they probably weren't a great fit anyway,
Totally.
right?
So much of this relates to, I feel like, the psychology of just relationships too. And like your policies
Yes.
are your boundaries. And like having those high expectations is a courtesy to the people engaging with you because you've got all your stuff together. And I feel like it's just dignified for yourself, but also for the people you're working with or relating to. And I think people respond well to that when you kind of elevate, when you speak kind of up to your audience in a way to say, come with me
Yeah.
on this journey. This is very exciting versus trying to, I don't know, make it small. Say, how about a quick phone call instead of, no, we're going to meet. Let's have a Zoom call. Let's get to know each other just to make time for it. If they can't make time for that call, um,
Are they going to practice?
right.
Odds are low.
And I
I
think
got,
that was something before that I just wanted to make everything easy for them.
mm,
To make it like, and there are ways to do that to maybe like optimize my website so they can reach out to me very
yeah,
easily, but that I don't need to sacrifice my schedule or
yes.
other parts of my life to cater to like someone who's not even sure if they want to take lessons.
Yeah.
Um,
I got chills a moment ago when you said like bringing dignity in that relationship and that respect because when we're working with families, especially a lot of our students are under the age of 18, right? We're working with parents. They are trusting us with their children. That is such a big deal. And so, yes, we can try to like make it really easy and convenient and like they can just sign up on the website, never talk to us, but also there needs to be mutual trust there to ensure that whether it's an adult student or a young child, they feel safe, they feel secure, they feel taken care of. There is trust in that relationship. And when there is that mutual trust and almost professional friendship going on in that relationship, it is so much easier for us to get results with that student. We have rapport. They believe what we say when we say you need to practice and we coach them through that. It's not just like you need to practice and we're shaming them into it. It's we're going to practice in this way to support these goals that you've told me about, and there's a clear reason for it, and that trust really goes a long way. When people ask all the time like how do you get students to practice, that's it right there. You have to respect what their goals are and build a practice plan with them to support that, and that starts in that first meeting. That starts in those early conversations of understanding truly what their motivation is and why they want to be there, right?
totally. When you get to set the
So
tone versus the maybe a school setting the tone, it's more of a mixed bag.
yeah.
Um,
Yep. And to your point too, humans love structure. So something I want to touch on in case anyone's listening right now, they're thinking, well, why use a studio management software? Like, why is that a sticking point for you? Can't you just use Venmo or like can you just pay for cash or send me a Zelle or whatever? Part of what we focused on a lot in your business, and I know we were talking about this again this morning too, having the structure around it has created a little bit more of that legitimacy that we were craving in the studio work, but also having that structure means that you really are separating the money from the music. Like you're not chasing anybody down for invoices and payment, where now outside of lesson notes, the only time a parent is hearing from you is when you're texting them saying, hey, you haven't paid me this month. That's not a great way to maintain that rapport. If it's on auto pay and the studio management software helps keep everything transparent and the receipts and the logs are all there, the scheduling is all available for them, they can see that at any time. But now we just get to focus on the teaching, which is the fun part. That's why we're all here in the first place. Do you feel like that's made this leap into private instruction easier for you? Even though I know that there's like back end setup, but has it been easier since?
yeah, using that, it just keeps it all in one place. So it's not like something different for every student and then texting a reminder or having like a moment at the end of the lesson of like, let's do that. Like, just like,
Yeah.
you don't have to really make any time for it. And I've had one student that I had before the software and then after, and she really enjoys it. She's like, made a point a couple of weeks ago to say like I love getting these appointment reminders. They're just like appreciating the structure herself. Or just like, I
Yeah.
get the email and everything's handled there, and um, it's useful.
Yeah. It feels good too. If you think about, on the flip side, when you're the consumer, when you're using a service-based business, like, a haircut or like my physical therapy appointments, getting those appointment reminders and having a touch point like that, it just feels, or even the automated billing, it just feels really established, really professional. And I think parents, especially, obviously we're working in a higher income area, higher net worth families. We were talking about the nannies and things earlier too. The easier it is for someone, the more likely they are to continue with it because it's just less stress on their plate. But that does not just apply in New York City. I want to like put that little asterisk. That is a universal experience. So, we're saying like making things easier. You want it to be easy to just assimilate to the system and get onboarded and make it really simple for them to continue and feel welcome. When we say not make it easy to sign up with you, it's not that we're trying to like make them jump through hoops, but we just want to make sure they understand that there is a process and that we're aligned on that too.
Yeah,
Oh,
totally.
so exciting. Okay, so now we've moved. We have the new studio and we have a new studio location, which is so exciting.
Mhm.
Walk us through how you found out about that because it's in your neighborhood, which is super exciting.
Yeah, I actually, one lead that I had, and I was chatting with this prospective student um, before I moved to the neighborhood, but was thinking about where would I teach her because she couldn't do lessons
Hmm.
at her home or my. So she was like, I think there's a studio space on your street, like around that area. Isn't there one in this place? And I actually forgot about that for a couple of months. And then I saw, I'm trying to think of, I saw the website through social media and then looked on the map there and found how it was close. It's like 5 blocks away, and I can rent a room there monthly for some hours. And yeah, it was all kind of unfolding though rather quickly. Like in order
Yeah.
to get the space for the first of the month, and then I was trying to also set up a first lesson with a student before I had even seen the space. I mean, I saw pictures of it, but so a lot of this was juggling a lot of things of like, this is kind of nuts. Am I going to go look at this space right now on like a Wednesday night after work and all of this? Like, but it all came together and worked out very well. And so I teach like 4 or 5 students there, which is great to have. I also teach, I ended up moving my piano finally out of my old apartment here, and I teach a student here as well. And it's working out.
Yeah, it was a great fit. It felt very kismet. Like the location was amazing. Your students were excited about it. It was really aligned, which is awesome. But I want to just to pick on what you said too. Starting the studio or starting your own business, it is a lot of work. It's not an easy journey. What is something that, especially in that early stage where we are renting a studio and trying to start things from scratch, what is something that you know now that you really wish you would have known or had experience or kind of understood at that exact stage in your studio?
Um, I think just that having a better picture of the ideal student that you want,
Mm.
and being okay with or accepting that not every student is going to be for you. So, and I think through carving out some policies and thinking about like actually what I want to do to in my own studio. I think as a student, as a pianist, learning the instrument, you spend so much time in the world of piano lessons. And I feel
Mhm.
like it creates this illusion that you know how to, therefore, be a studio owner, or to teach and to run like a business. But um, yeah, while I am very familiar with the nature of a piano lesson or master class or preparing for a performance, that it's very different than being a teacher on the other side, and then also being a studio owner as well. Um, so I think figuring that out, or grappling with that sort of like, yes, very familiar with this environment, but I've actually never given that much thought to my policies or how people pay, or how I structure this studio in ways that will really make my life so much easier. But I'm just kind of, I don't know, taking it one student at a time instead of like one studio, thinking of the studio as a whole.
Yeah. And that holistic approach, it's something that we talked about from the very beginning. On that note, how did you originally find out about Outs of the Box? And what made you maybe want to look at working with a scale program?
I think seeing some of the social media posts of yours that immediately kind of caught my attention here, of like, whoa, as someone who's teaching, and um, in the back of my mind, thinking the difference between how much I'm getting paid at a school, how much I could be making teaching privately. So the first introduction was through social media, and then meeting, discovering a colleague and seeing her studio and seeing it flourish before discovering that she had done the same program. And I thought that
Always a
was,
small world, even in a big city.
yeah, to get an email with a video, to watch the testimonial video, which also was really cool to hear. I mean, like, I watched the other videos as well, which were relatable. But seeing that one, I was like, oh my goodness, um, that's really exciting, and it makes it seem very even more possible.
Mm.
That yeah, I wasn't sure exactly what was going to happen, but I feel like worst case, I have all this information. Like I just, it seemed like even if I don't do this right away and I stay teaching in these schools, but I think the more that I started to like try some of these things with maybe the calls and consultations, and just the way that I started to chat with prospective students, that I like, oh wow, this makes so much sense. This is great. I can't believe I haven't been doing this.
It makes me really happy to hear how aligned it's felt because it's really important. Like good marketing, and as we're talking about before, the sales process and that relationship building, it should just feel like a natural continuation of our authentic self and how we like to present ourselves to friends and to colleagues. And it doesn't need to be this big, like we have to like learn sales or learn marketing in a big scary way. It's just refining and finding an approach that feels like you. That's the whole goal here. So it's exciting to hear that that's what's been happening and that's the experience you've had. It's amazing.
And I think one last detail about that is that the program, in some ways, I think feels like it gave me like permission to put myself out there in these groups, or to
Mm.
like, I guess, to go for it in some way. That it's like, and maybe it kind of replaced the legitimacy of an institution instead. It kind of like uh,
Mm.
gave that sort of permission to go out there and just say, hey, um, I'm
You're
here.
like, I know what I'm doing. I'm actually a really good pianist and a great teacher. You
Yeah.
should take lessons with me. Oh, that confidence is so important. It makes me so happy to hear and to see in the last few months the studio just flourish and you really settle into this plan. I know that we've got other plans in the works to make some adjustments in our where we're spending our time and what the studio looks like in the next few months, which is so exciting. I also just want to mention, if I can, like, just give you a little praise for a second, if that's okay. This has been a journey. There have been a lot of changes in your life in the last few months, and as we reflect back on that and the work that you've done, you took that maybe kind of permission that you felt was given and you really ran with it. Like you put yourself out there. I remember us doing, outreach to other schools and other businesses in the area, that we just were trying to network and meet people in the area, which again, in a big city especially, I think that's really scary. it can feel a little intimidating. Like, yes, it's a big city, but the music community in particular is very close knit. As we're kind of giggling about the fact that we knew Natasha and you'd seen that interview as well. But the reality is, as musicians, we know everything is really interconnected. I think sometimes that can feel really paralyzing, that we might say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing and people might judge us. But in reality, we have a lot of respect for musicians that are making moves, and we want to know those people, people that have the big desire and the big motivation. It's fun to be around them and be in a community of them and learn from them. And you really took that and you went all in. And even in the moments where it was scary to send an email or to inquire, go tour a studio space and commit to that, even though it was a little scary, as long as it felt aligned and authentic to what your goals were, we did it anyway. And that takes so much courage. And I'm really proud of you for doing that. It's so exciting to see the growth.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there, just in case anyone is listening and they're excited about what you do and they're trying to understand, we kind of talked about your vibe on the website and your marketing, and they want to take a peek at that. Where could someone potentially find out about you and your studio online?
Aha, on my website at alexandrasaraceno.com under the
Awesome.
teaching tab.
Perfect. Yeah, Alexandra's got a lot of really cool things going on. So I'll, again, just kind of recommend checking her out. She's awesome. Just to kind of pump that. There's a lot of really cool things happening in your studio and in your professional life. So again, proud of you. So excited for you. Congratulations. It's cool to like be at this point. As you're talking about again before we recorded, that it's wild to like watch those interviews, and then now here we are and we're doing one, and it's so cool to be at this like kind of wrap up point in all of our work together for now in our journey. So congratulations again. So proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you.